I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Branson here. This is Quarantine with the Stars here on AfterBuzz TV, and today I'm joined by a multi-talented musician, tattoo artist, and even streetwear designer. From the band Not a Toy, please welcome Branson Hoog. Branson, thanks for being here. Kind of what you're doing during quarantine to keep busy. So let's just jump right in. I want to start by learning all about you. So tell me your story. How did you kind of get into music and performing?
Totally. So I was always an art kid before music. I didn't actually start doing music until I was about 13.
Oh, wow.
And my little brother wanted to take guitar lessons, and he was afraid to go do the lessons alone. So I, being the protective big brother, went in with him, and I became obsessed with it. It was just like drawing, except it was like you were creating something that was invisible, and you felt so much deeper than you do with just like seeing a drawing. At least for me, I really connect with music, and my family's always been a music family. So it was a very natural thing to just like jump into. And I was, playing for hours a day. I still have blood splatters on the inside of my acoustic guitar just from learning how to play for hours. But that's how the whole music thing kind of came about.
Amazing. So how did like Not a Toy get started? What was that story like?
Yeah, that was actually back in high school. We went by a different name at the time, and we were just I wanted to start a band, and it was really difficult to find musicians that were all like kind of thinking similarly. And finally, in high school, I met this guy named Ben, who is now the drummer. And first time I ever met him, he was like, "Come over and like let's try to write something." And he had never written a song before, and so he was like, "Well, how do you actually do this?" And I was like, "Well, usually you just write about something that's going on in your life, or something that's like personal to you." And he said, "You can read my journal if you want. My parents are going through some stuff, and there's a lot of dark stuff in there, but you can read it." And instantly we were best friends. We just trusted each other on that level. And it's been 8 years now since then, going through the whole kind of emo genre of music, and then coming up to finally getting signed. And we've traveled all over the country, and it's crazy. I'm still a little bit in shock that this is even where we're at.
Amazing. Well, you travel, like you mentioned, you traveled across the country. You've done Vans Warp, you've done South by Southwest, which are super huge platforms for artists to share their work. So share what those experiences were like for you in the band.
Oh man, my favorite experience was we played Warp Tour in 2014, and this was just that year we just did the local date, which is like they did a little battle of the bands to try to get some local artists on the stage. And we showed up, and we've got a violinist in our band, and we showed
Cool.
up, and he didn't actually have his bow. And it was 10 minutes before we were going on stage, the biggest performance of our lives, like, in our high school minds. And we were freaking out. And so we were actually running all over Warp Tour trying to see if anyone had a bow. And we went over to Yellow Card and asked them if we could use their bow. And the guy said he couldn't give it to us. And so we were like absolutely defeated, just about to get on stage. And he's like, "Well, I guess I'll just like pluck my violin and just kind of make what we can out of the situation." And out of nowhere, one of our the band's parents, it was our guitarist's mom, runs up with an entire violin. Like, where on earth?
Save the day.
She's like, "I got you." And so we got on stage, like sound check was already done, and she shows up with that, and it was one of my favorite performances that we've ever had. Tours have been really fun. Up until now, it's been very DIY. So we've always been the headliner, even though we're a small band in the grand scheme of the music industry. And so it was actually like when we were first starting, it was a lot of bars and like restaurants, underground venues. But it was really cool to kind of cut our teeth that way, because then we got this hardcore following of these kids who were just like love to be jumping around and experiencing such a raw band in their first moments as an artist.
Definitely.
And yeah, so honestly, the touring we haven't toured like opening up for a bigger band yet, but over the last 2 years, obviously we've been signed to Fearless Records, which I'm so excited about. And so now we'll be the little band on the big tour instead of being the big band with locals opening up for us.
I see. I love that. Well, you signed with Fearless Records and you have a new single, J Cash. So tell me all about that. Like, what inspired that track?
Oh man. So first of all, we did switch genres. We're no longer rock music. When we were just starting out, it was like, okay, how creative can we be just with using guitar, bass, drums, violin? And now, eventually, we got to the point where we kind of felt like rock music wasn't evolving, and we were like, we need more to be able to experiment with. And we basically taught ourselves how to produce and like make beats and all that, which I guess nowadays a lot of people definitely do. But it was such an exciting moment for us to be like teaching ourselves how to do something that was so out of our wheelhouse. And J Cash was written when we were, obviously we're just figuring out the production stuff and how to make beats and how to just like warp. You can change sounds in so many different ways. And so J Cash, we were literally in my basement, and we had our entire album written up on the wall. The basement's unfinished, so we just had Sharpie covering all of the kind of the foam padding that unfinished basements are made of. And we wrote this song right after we got signed by Fearless. So right as it was a series of events. We had two different labels that were kind of fighting over us there for a sec, and we decided to go with Fearless. And so we were feeling on top of the world. We're like, we are a signed band. Like my high school self would have said we made it. Like this was what I wanted to do, was be on Fearless Records. That was my dream record label. And so all of a sudden to actually be on that label, but still in the basement. We haven't made it. We're not, pop chart hitters or anything like that. Literally just making what we can with what we have. And I just remember feeling like we should write a song that's like just has some attitude and is a little more braggadocious, like just talking about how like badass it is that we're signed to Fearless. And so yeah, J Cash is literally like, I remember being Fameless in the basement and just like bragging about ourselves. Like I got venom in my throat, I spit dangerous. Like we were throwing all kinds of ridiculous lines in there, but it was really good. That was like one of my favorite moments, was writing that track.
That's amazing. Well, I know that you're going to be popping off soon. Fearless is definitely very lucky to have you. So let's switch gears real quick and talk about your other passion, which is tattoos. Definitely want to talk about this because, like I mentioned, I know that I'm sure COVID has shaken up the tattoo industry. So how did you kind of go from musical artist to tattoo artist?
Yeah, so as I said, the art kind of came first, but that wasn't tattoo art. That was just drawing. And then I joined a band in early high school. And then when I turned, that was kind of the first time that that tattoos were like something that I was actually interested in, because all of the bands that we liked had like, they were covered, and I've always loved art. And so I saw that and I was like, oh, I need a tattoo. Like no question about it. As soon as I turn 18, I'm going to get a tattoo. And so I went and I got Relentlessly Pursue, just the quote Relentlessly Pursue on my bicep. I was like, it's hidden. My parents won't see it. They did see it. My mom cried. That was tight. And then no, I'm just kidding. But basically I had the thought all of a sudden where I always assumed that I would be a starving artist for a certain number of years, and then eventually life would just beat me down enough to the point where I would have to be a graphic designer or like an architect or something that involves design, but not necessarily like as creative. It's not drawing fun things. And all of a sudden I was in there getting my first tattoo, and this guy has pictures of his kids and he's got all of his drawings hung up. And all of a sudden I realized that was so many of our fans, because we had this like cult hometown following at that point. And so many of them, like the only reason that we're even where we're at is because of them. If no one ever would have come to the shows or made it look like we're hot, hot shit, hot stuff, sorry, we wouldn't have ever actually been able to get any record label or get where we're at. So I thought, how cool would that be if I could give back to the fans who like gave so much to us? It's like
Definitely
donating money to some charity and then never actually seeing it. It's like, I know these kids, like I've taken, like 30 pictures with them over the course of the last, 5 years. And they were the first time we signed something. They bought our first album, even though it didn't sound good. They bought our first t-shirt, even though it was ugly. Like they literally wanted to support us because they loved what we were doing. And I thought it would just be really cool to be able to give back to them a little bit. And I guess the other thing is in the emo genre, like Warped Tour, there's a lot of self-harm and like issues with self-love. And I really wanted to be able to cover their scars with tattoos. And so that was a big portion of it. Was I just wanted to no longer look at myself as like, oh, I'm an artist or I'm a musician. I'm just, the brand is me. I just create. And that's everything from tattoos to painting to the graphic design stuff to the music to all the band merch, and like trying to create something that we would actually want to like follow from an artist, and really just like put ourselves into the brand. And that has been like the core of the entire Not a Toy and just my personal mantra.
I love that. You definitely hit the nail on the head, because I did want to talk about, I know that you do that for your fans, you know, covering up the scars, because I think that's so inspiring. You know, people go through so many different mental health issues, especially during these crazy times, you know, so it's definitely so inspiring to see that you do that. In these crazy times, I also want to just kind of catch up with you and see how you're doing. So like, what are you doing to kind of keep busy and like not go crazy? Because I'm obviously like losing my mind over here in LA.
I feel that. I'm doing great. My fiance and I are super introverted. I think I've gotten really good at talking one-on-one to people, but I still at the core, I just want to be creating stuff by myself or with my crew. That's really it. So it's been fantastic so far. It's just been a lot of reading books, because I haven't actually had a lot of chances to read. I'm a very slow reader, and so finally all this time off where we're not allowed to tattoo, it's like, you know, it jumped up. So I read a book every couple days, and then I was doing a lot of oil painting and a lot of making music. Obviously, I've got a solo album that's also going to be coming out at some point this year that I'm really excited about. So it's just been honestly creating every day. I got a film camera. I've always enjoyed photography, but never, like, I would never call myself a photographer. I feel like people who do that are very, they do. But it was like such a fun challenge just to like learn something new or get better at something. I started doing some like jazz piano lessons. That way, my piano playing is very basic. I know basic chords right now, but I want to be able to actually like completely just understand the keyboard, where I don't have to think, and as soon as I hear someone jamming, I can just move around. So just it's all self-growth for me.
Yeah, a lot of creativity, I'm sure.
Such a valuable time. I've always wanted to just live like I was a kid again. Like we always talk about that as adults now. It's like, man, I wish I could just go back to forgetting what day it is and just really like doing the things that I think are fun and just following your passion, and that's it. So that's honestly what I've been up to.
I love that so much. I feel the same way. Sometimes I'm just like, adulting, I'm over her. Like I can't deal with her anymore. Like taking back to the days where I can just like hang out on the weekends with my friends, eat whatever the heck I wanted, and live life.
The glory days. That's the best.
For sure. Branson, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you. If your fans want to follow more of you and see what you're up to, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, it's just at Branson Hoog. That's Hoog. But on all social media, the band is Not a Toy. I think that is also, it's just Not a Toy on all platforms. Our website is Not a Toy Official. I think that's the only one that's different. But it's on Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes.
Perfect. Definitely, everyone, make sure you go check out Branson and Not a Toy's new music. I'm so excited for it. You're going to love it. Check out his tattooing when Miss Rona gets the heck out of here. I'm sure I need to tattoo myself, so I definitely will give you a call.
Hit me up. I got you.
I will, for sure. I'm Brian Santos. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at The Brian Santos. This has been Quarantine with the Stars with Branson Hoog. It's been a pleasure, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.